So feel free to come a little bit closer because it's good if you can read this board. And I only have a very small whiteboard, so what to do. So just to give a bit of a recap of last week, and so you know what we covered, and to give some context, because this will be very important.
Yeah, you just turn it up a bit. It's got people, quite a few people to that. Some people to that.
Yes, do come closer. Please come closer. I don't bite.
Even if you want to bring some chairs onto the stage, that's okay as well.
Very important if you can see this board, because a visual aid will be very helpful. So this class is going to be somewhat technical, but try to give full focus and attention, because this acts of Tatvigyan, the philosophical knowledge and discernment, it will cut through the ropes of illusion and give you freedom. So try to hear very, very carefully and attentively. So last week we covered Vedic creation theory. So just to briefly go through that again, starting on this level of Prakriti. This means the unmanifest state of the universe, when the three gunas, the three energies of material nature, they are in equilibrium. So those three energies are tamas, rajas, and sattva. Tamas means the energy of inertia, slowness, dullness. The energy of Rajagun represents the energy of vitality, dynamism, creativity, very dynamic energy, like a comet flying through the sky. And Sattvagun, it represents the energy of clarity, patience, equilibrium, and calmness. So these three energies, they are always in competition with one another once the equilibrium of Prakriti is broken. So when Mahavishnu, on a particular schedule, he glances upon this level of Prakriti, then the equilibrium of Prakriti is broken, and then that sets the creation into play. So then in the next level down, this is called Mahat, or the Mahatattva. So this is when the three gunas, they are starting to compete with one another. So this Mahatattva, the portion of the Mahatattva that covers your soul, so this is the first subtle covering of your soul, the first part of the subtle material energy that covers the conditioned soul. That is called citta, or it's also called the linga sharira, or the shukshma sharira, the subtle body, or the psychological body. And this psychological body, the anatomy of it is the sattvic portion of the subtle psychological body. It is called manas, or mind. And then the rajasic portion of this subtle body, that is called buddhi, intelligence. And the tamasic portion of this citta, that is called ahankar, or ego. So your ego is a collection of all the impressions, or what's called samskaras, impressions that you have had, not just in this life, but in previous lives. And those impressions, they collate together in the subtle body, and they give rise to a certain sense of self, or a certain persona, a certain personality. This personality is based upon all the experiences that you have had. So even in this life, we have some sense of identity based upon the experiences that we have had. Yes? Yeah? No? Arguments? So this persona, the sense of identity, then because it has been shaped by our experiences, then this gives rise to certain desires and certain preferences. So then the manas, the mind, is working with the buddhi, the intelligence, of how to fulfill these desires that this sense of self has. So the intelligence is coming up with so many ideas, and the mind is accepting or rejecting them, because the basic function of mind is kalpa vikalpa, raga dvesha, accepting or rejecting, accepting or rejecting. I want to go to Goa. I want to go to India. I want to go to the pub. I want to go to the beach. Always, our whole life is just shaped by this, reaching towards one thing while pushing away something else. And for most of us, our entire existence just lives in this level of manas, accepting something, rejecting something else. And then so the intelligence, because it is actually a higher function than mind, it is using its discernment of how, by accepting certain things and rejecting other things, it can fulfill the desires of the ego. And this citta, this subtle psychological body, it expands and it contracts. So just like there's the soul, and over the soul, or there's the body, we can use this example, there's the gross physical body. And then over the physical body, you can wear one shirt, one t-shirt. And then over the t-shirt, you can wear a big puffer jacket. So the first covering of the soul is this subtle psychological body comprising of mind, intelligence, and ego. And then over the subtle body, this is the gross physical body, which is made up of 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space. So just to give a little bit more context of this Mahatattva. So this Mahatattva, it is like pure and clear, like very clean water. And just like in the atmosphere right now is about 73% humidity. And then this moisture in the air undergoes phase transitions. So in the first phase transition, it condenses into cloud. And then from cloud, it condenses more into rain. And then from rain, that rain falls to earth, and it can freeze in a cold place, and it can turn into ice. So these are the phase transitions, or the different, in this analogy, the different evolutes of Prakriti. So you actually only have one base aggregate of Prakriti, material nature, but as it goes through phase transitions, then it becomes grosser and grosser and grosser, eventually turning into the gross physical elements: space, air, fire, water, and the most dense, earth. So all these physical elements, they are actually transformations of the tamasic portion of citta. And we covered that last week. So what here's another helpful example. If you've come to this class before, you would have heard it a couple of times, but just think of how many times I've heard it. So if there's a fish swimming in the ocean and there's a disturbance upon the surface of the ocean, a big thunderstorm, that fish can dive down into the depths of the ocean and not be perturbed by any disturbance on the surface. But if you put that same fish in a teacup, any disturbance in that teacup, on the surface of the teacup, it feels it so much, yeah, in that very contracted space. So when your citta is in a contracted phase, then anything that happens in your life, you feel that so much. And when your citta, your psychological field, is expanded, so many things can happen, but it's just Om Shanti, no problem. But some days you just wake up like that. It's a bright sunny day. It's nice and fine. Go for a swim. Something may happen, but no problems. And then other days you just wake up. You just wake up in a contracted space. And then your partner looks at you the wrong way or something like that. And oh, big problem coming. Yeah, is it not so? So we can all relate very practically to this expansion and contraction of citta. So this Vedic science, it is so deep and so profound. So very much we want to engage in spiritual practice, engage in spiritual life that will expand our citta more and more and more. And ultimately, that because there's what's called the conceptual horizon. Is, for example, if you go out onto the beach, you can see so far up the coast, and then that's all you can see. And so your perceptual horizon in that place is only extending for a few kilometers, and you cannot see beyond that. So internally, we have our own conceptual horizon of the concepts and ideas that we have. And anything outside of that, we either dismiss it, or generally we try to formulate a conception of reality with only within the content of what is contained in our own conceptual horizon. And generally speaking, our conceptual horizon is very, very narrow, very, very limited. And then if any idea or thought is coming from outside our conceptual horizon, it can become very, very challenging. And often our sense of identity is totally entwined with our very limited perceptual horizon. So we want to expand this more and more and more. And so now, particularly what I want to focus on today is the expansion and the contraction of our citta, or the expansion and the contraction of the psychological body. What causes contraction and what will lead to expansion, and what becomes available when we can expand that psychological body more and more. Felix. So now a little exercise for a couple of minutes. I want you to maybe pair up in a few pairs because we only have a few pens. And I want you to write down 2 lists. One, what causes your citta, your psychological subtle body to contract, and then what you think will cause it to expand.
So maybe get in groups of 3, I think, because we got quite a large group today. So yeah, just next with the people next to you, and then you can.
What makes the citta expand and what makes your citta contract?
Yeah. And I'm not looking for Sanskrit answers necessarily.
Okay, you start. You're starting.
Anyone got the mala as well? If that goes
Put
first.
2 lists, no?
I've got more pens
Citta
here.
contract.
Oh, expand.
another way to put it, what stabilizes you and what destabilizes you, without getting too personal about it.
¿Qué te fa dare l'impressione di sentirti bene o male? Tipo,
Yes, yes.
Espande la coscienza, cosa che
alla vita. Understood?
Like
What is
what can disturb us,
what
but
is
cannot.
what is give you like feeling I am good, and what is giving you feeling I'm not good? This is contraction and expansion. So what that is
Like when you do meditation, your citta expansion. When you do like sorry, go in the night and drinking, it's contraction.
okay? I will put something more sadistic.
No, but now contract.
Okay. Meditation. It's also music. Okay. So contract.
Like the name.
Yes.
Come on, put
They want to find a good word. Huh? Is that decision?
I think just we need to write the things
Indecision is distraction. It's because I have indecision that I need to
Okay.
Hey, maar ze spraken al.
Cool.
okay.
Oh.
Oui, oui, voilà.
And listening to music too.
Frustration. You know, this is more object and this is more emotion.
Yeah, true.
So
3 minutes left.
something you don't like.
Yeah, and like metal music. It's good.
I'm sorry, but also. After sex.
Already.
It's true.
You can put a name. Because I can put names in both of them. Sex with the rest.
Okay, other subject.
Which family?
No.
Family,
Walk.
blood family?
Like news. For me, it's horrible to hear news. Like television news.
Long
Few people
conversation.
are very positive negative people are because
People that don't know
but they're writing for the people who
Yes,
give
people
the good
don't
feeling.
stop talking.
You need long talking.
Yeah.
Felix.
It might be good through the chair here.
Party.
Yeah, maybe we can.
Yeah, good idea. Bring a chair.
Fine.
People, I love happiness.
You can put like
The happiness of the people I love.
Staying up late for me is staying up late for me sometimes is staying up late, like sleeping at 4 o'clock in the morning.
you can put one.
This is Indian construction.
Not working.
might just have to.
Feeling ugly. Yes. For my menstruation.
Everyone can see.
Decision and fight.
It's fine.
Argument is fine. Argument is fine.
Okay, starting to wrap it up.
Okay, starting to wrap things up now. I'll pass around the mic and you can read, one person from each group can read through your list.
Anyway, when I speak English, you know people listen.
So,
You have to talk into the
yeah, okay. So for the chitta expansion, playing music, playing instruments, singing, listening to music, feels good. Dancing, japa, meditation, yoga, staying in nature, visiting the family, friends, people who love us, we love them. And the contractions are like doing drugs, alcohol, staying up really late for no reason, just overthinking, or for any reason, staying up late and then wake up late and then whole day lazy, and just smoke, criticism, arguments. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You have to talk in.
Okay, the cheetah expanded, ice cream, sex, music, singing, dancing, meditation, kirtan, people, the happiness of the people I love, the understanding of people, of someone to understand me, the sounds of nature, and being by a fire, being next to a fire. And the contraction is contradiction, jealousy, comparison, frustration, metal music, being hungry, after sex, TV news, long talkings, like people that don't stop talking, low self-esteem, feeling ugly, and drugs.
I write only for the
Stabilization.
stabilization of citta, bread, 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 and for when you are
Breathing. Breath.
Bread.
Yeah. Not bread.
also bread. Yes, yes. Also, when I'm eating, I'm very stable. But sometimes also I didn't write. And one other things that make the opposite is when I saw myself on the other, some rush when we are rush, no? And also yesterday happened that I was playing and one person was in one atun melody and atun and a rhythmic melody, and I was very disturbed by this. I cannot play, continue to play because it was too much.
My stability is to see the animals when the hierarchy with the animals like cats, dog, with the human people. Because I have the possibility for to watch a lot of time in my place the cats. They have the hierarchy very interesting, but when the people moving there don't look at this. And here too, I see the dogs to moving like some hierarchy, and to watch the people have the feeling because I understand that the dogs don't reading the voice, but they're reading the heart, the energy, like this. And that's when I see those conditions, I love it to stay quiet. I go out with all thinking and I watch only the situation, like the moment. It's like this. It's only one. It's more other. But repression is the difficult, the competition, like with the life to everybody, because it's very stupid the conditions for to go faster or too much slow. It's the wave is wave. And sometimes when I talk too much, I think some people watch me talk too much, or opposite. Stay quiet. Why you don't speak? What you But I stay to work like this situation there, and I prefer to materials condition. I know it's Goa too is a change. I think like the time was start. It's a way. It's a way every change.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, to expand, for me that is clearly nature. When I step in the jungle, I feel like as if I remove 20 jackets. And especially when I go naked in a river pool, then just home and a lot of nonsense falls away. Oh. Did you hear it?
Yeah, that's. You just got to speak into this microphone. Yeah.
When I go in jungle, yeah, playing flute, doing art, yeah, loving touch. And contraction, yeah, especially indecisiveness, overthinking, overworrying, thinking that I made mistakes in the past or that kind of things. And too many people around, like here on Arambol Beach, I get too overwhelmed, and that is the contrast with jungle is then so huge that it's like heaven.
Thank you.
Klaxon contracts. I would say the excess or the excessive excess or the excessive lack of everything between food, sleep, or any kind of excessive consumption, or the way it's not what, but it's the way you do it. And yeah, the feeling of not belonging, the feeling of not having a home, the feeling of feeling out of place. What else? The what expands is calm, peace, and quiet that you can find through nature and real connection, authenticity, allowing your vulnerability to be there, the constructing of limiting beliefs and empowerment, embodiment practices, circus, performance, art, singing, and yeah, all of those. What else? Theater, comedy, women's circle. What did we put more? Alcohol.
I forget one essential one because it's really a tip for ones who didn't do it yet. There is here a banya, that's a Russian sauna, and there is also women's circles happening, and it is so deep healing. I went to some specific circle also with voice work, but every Tuesday morning there is a women banya, so it's really deep relaxing.
If I could just humbly request maybe one person from each group share their list just to save time. Thank you. And try to be concise.
Contract fear, physical pain, discussion, heart pain. Expand love, football match, contact with the soul, and chocolate. Chocolate. Depends.
So chitta expansion, japa, kirtan, meditation, listening to harikatha, exercise, good conversation, swimming in the ocean, nature, deep sleep, learning, watching the sunrise or sunset, animals, physical touch, meeting good friends, singing, dancing, sadhusanga. Contraction, negative emotions, miscommunication, social media, conflict, judgment, criticism, comparing, the smell of alcohol, lack of sleep, violent movies, being in survival mode, trauma held in the body, lamenting, worrying, lying, and betrayal.
I'm going to know what I'm supposed to say, but I think I understand it to be what constricts your chitta.
Ah,
For me, it's self-care,
an expansion of chitta.
compassion, self-love.
Expansion, we have peace, silence, ocean, mountains, love, breathing, meditation, yoga, exercise, music, and connection. And for contraction, we have bad energies of people, stress, overthinking, noise, being busy, distraction, alcohol, bad food, and social media.
Contraction. Long time staying in one room, intoxication, overthinking, misbehavior of others, and untasty food. Expansion. Swimming, dance, music, tasty food, driving scooter, looking at the nice object and colors, hugs, nature.
We got contraction as sleeping, then too much attachment to a situation and what you want, extreme needs, a negative company, and then expansion we have kirtan, meditation, good company, yoga, and maintaining a daily routine, and then good nutritious diet and giving to others, seva.
Backside.
If you want to give me your pieces of paper.
I can keep them if they
So we see quite a lot of commonality there, a lot of common themes coming through, such as connection, music, dance, chocolate. 3 people said intoxication or drugs causes contraction, so we must be in quite a sattvic group. So now I want to look at phases of contraction of the chitta as per the Vedic model, and then phases of expansion. And we can relate this to some of the things we have just shared. So the first stage, this is a very contracted state. And it's like you've just been out partying last night and you wake up in the morning and you feel, this is called mudha. Like a complete dullness, inertia. You're awake, but you're asleep. Hungover kind of feeling, yes. I'm sure none of you know what that's like, but you can imagine. So, this is the first stage, mudha. Just like a bit of a zombie, actually. And then the next stage is called shipta. And this stage, shipta, the literal translation means thrown. So people in the stage of mudha, they reach for coffee or something to give them a Red Bull or one of these other crazy things people drink. So then they drink that, and then they get an influx of sugar or rajas, and then this throws them into the state of shipta. And so their psychological internal atmosphere, now so many ideas are coming. Here, there, everywhere, your mind is like a grasshopper, because now it's very, very active. But you cannot concentrate and you cannot focus in this stage of shipta. And it's actually very difficult to have any kind of deep thought or conversation in this stage of shipta. It's like, I'm sure you all know people that if you try to have any kind of deep conversation with them, they're just like, oh, did you see that television program last night? And my favorite character, oh, I like your shoes. Oh, hang on, my phone's ringing. Just mind's just constantly in a state of distraction, like a total grasshopper, jumping here, 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 and everywhere. And people in this state, they're only interested in very superficial things, living a very superficial, shallow existence. And so therefore, because they actually have no depth to them, then they always have to be in the state of constant distraction and always trying to find newer and newer things to occupy their tiny little consciousness. So always running around here, there, and everywhere, looking for the next high, looking for the next dopamine hit. And so, to be honest, most people, they are just floating between the state of mudha and shipta. It's the sad state of the world. And so the next state is called vikshipta. And so this is partial concentration, but with occasional distraction. So in this stage, you can focus for some time, but you cannot hold that concentration for a very prolonged period. But in comparison to the stage of shipta, then this stage is quite successful. So the people who have predominance of this state of vikshipta in their consciousness, they become very successful. They are academics because they have some power of concentration. Then often they become the elites within their certain fields of expertise, because by the power of focus and concentration, you gain mastery over whatever field that you are concentrating on. So those people who go up the ladder, they have some ability of vikshipta, generally speaking. There can also be some good karma, because sometimes idiots also rise up, but that's another thing. So this is the first three stages: mudha, shipta, and vikshipta. And so these are phases of our psychological body. Are those clear? Any questions or confusion around that?
Can we mix sometimes these three states? Can we mix sometimes?
Yes, so, because they're all comprised of the gunas. And the gunas, these three energies, they're like three strands on a rope, always mixed together. So nothing is completely sattvic or completely rajasic or completely tamasic. Each guna has a proportion of the previous gunas. So these states can be mixed, like the state of mudha, deep sleep. And then you wake up, you reach for the coffee, and now you're in a state of vikshipta. And then you drive to work, you're in your little cubicle for 9 hours, and you can concentrate for a while when the boss is looking, and then you go back to Facebook scrolling into another state of shipta. So there can be occasional moments of vikshipta, and just enough that you can do your job, and then come back home, and then go into a state of shipta while you watch so much nonsense on the TV, and then you just fall asleep going into mudha. And your life just rotates around and around like that, and not having any deep thought or inquiry. Who am I? What am I doing here on earth? What's life about? Just very shallow existence. And we cannot really understand anything of substance when we're just in these shallow states. So then in the next stage, now we're actually entering what is called yoga. So in this next phase of consciousness, this is called akagra or akagrata. And ek means one, so one pointed concentration. And it may seem paradoxical, but the more you can focus and concentrate on a single point, the more your consciousness actually expands. And so this principle is there in many things you have just shared, because dance, certain activities, watching certain things, your focus is concentrating on a particular object. And because you're concentrating on a particular object, then your field of citta, your field of consciousness actually expands. And when this field of the citta expands, you feel more light, you feel more happy, like the fish swimming in the ocean, because now you are no longer in the teacup. So this feels very pleasurable. So even if you are just surfing a wave out on the beach, you have to have a certain level of one-pointed focus and concentration to stand on the surfboard. So in that, there is actually a kind of quasi-expansion of the consciousness, and you feel light and you feel joyful for that. So also playing sports, also having sex, you're focusing on a feeling. So then there's an expansion of consciousness. So this principle of ekagrata, one-pointed concentration, is there in many aspects of our life. And in this, like when you're listening to music, you're listening to the beat, you're listening to the lyrics, so you're not thinking about shopping or your boss or all these other things. So because you're focusing your concentration, citta expands, and this makes you feel good. But there is a difference here, that depending on the means upon which you're concentrating, it has a particular energetic makeup, which is also comprised of the gunas. And then so, although there's the universal principle of concentration and expansion of consciousness, if you're focusing on something of a lower energy, then you're also getting an influx of tamagun or rajagun in your consciousness, and then that will have its after effects. And so unless you're practicing a sattvic or a nirguna object of concentration, it won't lead to the continued expansion of consciousness even once that object or experience is withdrawn from your field. So then, just like the surfer may feel very good when he's on the wave, but give it 2 weeks of flat conditions, then they get very angry because they're not touching upon a state of absorption through an organic means. Like meditation, you just sit down, you don't need something external. So when you're reaching for concentration through an external point, that has the gunic quality in it. And if you cannot access that, then all you're left with is the remains of what was there previously, either tamas or rajas, and then you react accordingly because of that. So last week we talked about this level of ekagrata and the various levels of samadhi, and how when the yogi, when he sits down and he has moved through the earlier stages of yoga, yama and niyam, observances and moral codes, which so many yogis these days have no even awareness of what those are, and then asana. Asana literally means to sit comfortably. And then when you can sit comfortably without a sore back or sore shoulders, then you can start to regulate your breath, pranayama. And then in the next stage, pratyahara, your awareness is no longer going out into the physical objects of the world. You're starting to withdraw your consciousness in, even from your own mind. And then in the next stage, dharana, concentration. You're starting to cultivate the power of concentration. You're starting to cultivate the power of mind. And then in the next stage, dhyan, then you can actually enter into meditation at that point. And then the next stage after that, samadhi, then this is what we're talking about here. So in this stage of samadhi, there is 7 levels of samadhi, and there is 5 levels of concentration that is moving from the grossest form of material nature to the most subtle form. So for example, I'll use the same example as last week. In the first stage of samadhi, the savitarka samadhi, then if I'm doing samadhi on this object, and because the yogis are already at quite a high level here, they don't need the physical object in front of them, because we have to understand a little bit about yogic perception here, because in the Mahatattva, which contains all the universal elements, and then that portion of the Mahatattva that covers your soul is called citta. So the citta, all the elements in the universe, they are external, but they are also internal in your psychological body. So therefore, when the yogi, he goes into samadhi, because all the elements, all the aggregate of gross and subtle material nature is already within his field of consciousness, then he can perfectly introduce and replicate any object of the physical manifest world. Because we never actually see any object as it is. We're always seeing a reflection in our own consciousness. Just like if there's a cell phone and you have the camera function on the phone and you hold the camera up, you see a reflection of the image you're looking at on the photo screen. And so you're not actually seeing the image as it is, you're seeing the image as the phone is capturing it. And if it's got a real low-level camera, then the image is pretty poor. If it's got a very high-level camera, then the image is very good. And so in the same way, we are never seeing anything exactly as it is out there in the external world. We're always just seeing a facsimile of it, a reflection of it in our own internal consciousness. And to give another example of this, if you take some drugs, maybe not in the sattvic group, or if you have a very high fever, then your internal citta, it is moving so much. And then when you look around, you see, oh, the trees are moving back and forth, everything's swaying. But the objects of the world, they are not actually moving. They are just steady as they ever were. But because your citta is in a state of oscillation, then it looks like the external object is moving. Okay, can you catch that? Or too confusing? So we're never seeing anything as it is. We always see it through the lens of our own citta. And so when the citta is in a state of oscillation, then we're never getting a clear view of reality. So that's why Patanjali has given in Yoga Sutras, Yogas Citta Vitri Nirodha. The definition of yoga is when the citta, when the mind space is clear and calm, only then can you actually perceive things as they are. When it is not calm, when you're in a state of mudha, shipta, or vikshipta, no chance of perceiving reality as it is. No chance whatsoever. So try to understand these mechanics very, very deeply. They are so profound. So only in the state of ekograta, then can you actually perceive something as it is. And this is not even just an external object of the world. Even if you're having a conversation with someone, you're not even hearing their words. Most of the time you're hearing your own internal commentary about their words, and you're just waiting for them to shut up so then you can give your commentary about it and your opinion. Yeah, most people are like that. They don't even know how to listen. So a lot of people said calmness makes them feel expanded. So it's very vital to be calm and peaceful. So this has so many gross and subtle implications, this focused, calm consciousness. So in the first stage of Samadhi, the Savitaka Samadhi, I'm going to meditate on this pen. And then in my consciousness, this pen will manifest, but there'll still be some reference to my previous worldly knowledge about the pen. And then in the next stage, Nirvitaka Samadhi, there'll be no more taka, no more deliberation upon my previous experience. This pen, exactly as it is, will perfectly replicate itself in my consciousness. And I will be able to understand every single gross and subtle function of this pen. So just like when the yogi, he meditates on the belly in the stage of Nirvitaka Samadhi, the whole download of Ayurveda will come, because you get both the gross and the subtle sense of information of the object. And then in the next stage, Savichar Samadhi, then it's not just the object or the function of the object. Now you're looking at the structure of the object. And the structure of the object is comprised of these Panch Mahabhuts: earth, water, fire, air, and space. Everything is only a combination of these. And so you may say, oh, well, you know, the yogis are a bit outdated. Now we have the periodic table. But actually, all the elements in the periodic table, they are also just a combination of these 5 elements in different proportions. So in this third stage of Samadhi, the yogi is understanding, oh, this object is actually just comprised of earth, water, fire, air, and space. And then in the next stage, Nirvichar Samadhi, my awareness is not just of this object, the elements of the object, of the singular object. I can now understand that this, these 5 elements, they actually pervade all of creation. And everything in creation is simply a combination of these 5 elements. So now, see how by focusing, our concentration is actually expanding. Now we've included all the gross physical universe just by meditating upon this pen. Quite profound. So, as you go deeper into this concentration, all aspects on each level will become manifest. So not just the grossness itself, but different beings, different energies, different planets, different dimensions. Each one as you go will manifest in your consciousness. So then we can apply this to different spiritual traditions, because they are also cultivating certain levels of samadhi. And then in their certain levels of samadhi, if they are meditating on the element of earth, then they will go deeper and deeper into earth. And then so the shamanic traditions, for example, they are manifesting what's existing not just on the gross physical earth plane, but on the subtle earth plane. So then they're working on that level. And as you go up and up and up and up and up, then things become more and more subtle. But this is all within the prakriti, the material nature. So then we're up to the 4th level now. So now number 5, Sananda Samadhi. So now the perception is becoming more refined, and no longer are you concerned with the objects of the physical world. Now you are looking at the tanmatras, or actually this category here, how the subtle senses themselves are actually working, and the actual mechanics of perception themselves. And when you can perceive the actual level of subtle perception itself, this level is called Sananda Samadhi, because there's more bliss in this level than anything that you can obtain on the gross physical level. Or in other words, there's more bliss in perceiving how you perceive than anything that you can perceive in the gross material world. So that's called Sananda Samadhi. Any questions? Confusion? Yes, so the question just came, when we're meditating on Krishna or God, do we also go through these levels? And the answer is yes. But this is the next phase of the talk. So first we're looking at the yoga levels of perception related to Prakriti, and then we'll look at each stage through when we're focusing on Krishna or God or a transcendent being as the object of meditation. Then it becomes quite different. So this level of ekagrata, this is a highly stabilized citta. And you can understand things on a very deep level here, because you're not just oscillating between being thrown around in your internal space. So the process of concentration and meditation, it just has such profound levels in your daily life without even going into any woo-woo theology. It's just very, very practical, yeah? And this next stage of nirodha, it is a complete restraint of all movements of the psychological body. Or in other words, the citta becomes completely still. And so the difference between ekagrata and this nirodha state, and the ekagrata in this model, you still have a gross or subtle material object as your object of meditation. In the nirodha state, then you're no longer referencing anything gross or subtle material. You can then meditate upon your own consciousness or your own soul. So another very practical point. Until we come to the stage of ekagrata, deep focus and concentration, then the samskaras, the impressions that we get in deep meditation and samadhi, they can overpower these impressions that are formulated in these three states. But if we don't come to this state, we will never have the power to be able to overcome the oscillating impressions that are just always being thrown around in this state. So it's very vital, if you want to raise your consciousness, to be able to focus and to be able to concentrate. Or you may get momentary times where you're feeling more peaceful, but then again you will just be oscillating again and again, thrown around like a fish in a teacup. So that basically gives us an overview of the yogic model of samadhi. And it gives us some mechanics, some context of where we're going. It gives us a bit of a roadmap, because so often we have very abstract and very hazy ideas about our spiritual journey, where we're going, what to do, how to actually progress. So then really we're just still in these states of shipta and vikshipta, when we haven't even come to any level of yogic perception or actual understanding of how to actually navigate ourselves out of this matrix and be situated in spiritual consciousness. So then we just have some ideas about what we saw on YouTube, or what our friend told us, or what we read, or what we imagine. And these are just, essentially it's just imagination. Because actual experience is also here in ekagrata. That's how the yogi gets the actual experience of the object as it is, not through the filter of our previous experience. So anything that we experience prior to the state of savitarka samadhi, or we can say nirvitarka samadhi, it's always going to be influenced by our previous worldly experience. So we'll always be seeing it through the lenses of our samskaric impressions. And this filters everything. And it's actually a great state of suffering to always be seeing things through our previous impressions. So this is kind of like if you have a microscope, and then you can have the microscope zoomed out, and then you can go 50 times, 100 times, 150 times, and the more and more you focus that power of concentration, the more you can penetrate into the depths of reality. So this is the basic principle here. Just like an archer starts with a very big target and then goes smaller and smaller and smaller. So the smaller the target going into Samadhi and through the stages of Samadhi, I might say there's a smaller and smaller refined concentration, but internally there's a more and more expanded experience of reality as it actually is. So these things may seem, oh, it's very technical. You have to hear these things again and again and again. Because some years back, I asked my guru about prana. What is prana? And he knew that I couldn't actually understand at that point. So then he told me about these mechanics of samadhi. And then at the time I thought, did he understand my question? He's just talking about samadhi. I asked him about prana. But then again and again and again, I was listening to this. And then that takes you into a kind of samadhi. And then the actual mechanics become manifest in your consciousness. And then I could understand, oh, that's why he told me. Because I couldn't understand what is prana until I come to levels of samadhi. And then I can actually understand what is prana. Otherwise, you can understand some information, which can be useful, but it's not the experience. Like Einstein says, anyone can know, but the point is to understand. So we live in an age of information, but very little people actually know anything, and very little wisdom or realization. We'll have a little kirtan now, a little break from all this philosophy.
Sure. How long is it going
To be.
It's not too long because it might.
Yes, for sure.
Bueno, Hare Krishna, everyone. Yesterday, I experienced this expansion of myself through my self-love. When I finally let go of a fear in my life. And this was so unique. Like I was again seeing life as new, as melting, as this world is changing because I did it for myself. And sometimes that's why I love so much my ego, because I care so much for this persona and all his history. So I feel that we are all perfect in the way that we are living, and it's coming from these contractions to expansions. And yesterday I felt really happy, really joyful, and really blissful. And I just want to share to all of you this state that we can always achieve again and again if we are truthful to ourselves, if we are brave for letting go fears. Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
I'll speak a little bit to that later on. It can be relevant. Next, we'll talk about bhakti. The basic processes to just be absorbed in the names of God. So if we do this properly, I won't have to talk about it, okay? Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I'm just a little mindful of time. So I can either carry on the stages of bhakti or we can make that another class. Raise your hand if you want to hear some more. Raise your hand if you want to go and have a sleep. Okay, so we're going to have to tie it up here for today. But try to keep this very clear in your mind, as clear as you can. These stages of the psychological expansion and the contraction. And in the next class, we'll see how in the development of bhakti, these stages relate to the different stages of advancement in bhakti, such as Shraddha, Sadhusanga, Bhajana Kriya, Natanavriti, Nishta, and then Ruchi. Or, in other words, the successive stages of realization of God, and how, in the stabilized citta, you can actually realize God. How, when the object of meditation is the divine names of God, then how that will sequentially unfold within the field of your consciousness. No, there's no imagination, there's no speculation. It's a very real experience, very scientific. And so we can enter into that next time. Any questions? Thoughts, feedback, complaints?
This is because you are recording this live?
Yes, this way.
Yeah, I guess, not as you.
You're all very, very beautiful,
Yeah,
but I don't need a video of you.
So is there a way to follow this even when you are not here?
Yes, it'll be on YouTube. The video, if you're referring to that.
Yes, I'll ask you more later.
Yeah, and then also we have our teacher coming next month. And so he is infinitely more learned and wise, and he has realized all of this in his practical experience. So it is very good if you can learn from that person. So please try to come and get his association, because even one nimesha, 1/11th of a second of associating with someone who is established in realization beyond these levels of material nature. It is so powerful. It will change your life forever. So I didn't get to it today, but what we've been talking about is all within the scope of material nature, going from gross to subtle. And then we touched on it last week, coming out of the cave of material consciousness. First you see the light, that is the light of Brahman. And then beyond the light of Brahman is the spiritual world. And Krishna is there waiting for you. Look, even a little picture of him. So, all these things, it's a science. Just like any subject in the material world, if you really want to enter deep into it, you have to approach a master in that field. And so the great saints of many traditions, they have given us the roadmap of how to follow and raise through all these levels sequentially so we can actually obtain realization for ourselves. Because at the end of the day, we may be following some philosophy or some theology and think that that's a really guiding principle in our life. And yes, it can be, and for many it is, but for most people, what really informs them in life is their own experience. And I'm not just talking about high elevated states of just their real worldly experience. And everyone's worldly experience is all related to the samskaras of Buddha and Shipta, and maybe just sprinkling of Vikshipta. So what's guiding us and orientating us in our life is the samskaras in these two states. And so the more time you can spend in Samadhi, then those impressions will begin to guide and inform you in life. And then you can obtain auspiciousness in life. Otherwise, you're just going like a grasshopper, Mudha Shipta, Mudha Shipta, Mudha Shipta. And all these just not just psychological beliefs or impressions, they also contain a whole emotional experience, all of these impressions. So what's really guiding you in life is your impressions that contain an energetic content of emotions. But these emotional content is related to Mudha and Shipta, or it's all within the field of Prakriti. And so if there's a sattvic experience, then you feel very light and you've transcended the teacup of your own experience momentarily. But because it's still within the gunas, then that cannot be sustained forever, because these gunas are always in flux. So if you really want to be established in an expanded state of citta, of consciousness, permanently, forever, you have to come to the transcendental platform. No matter how wonderfully your experiences may be here, and the subtle elements of material nature, they are still ephemeral, and they will come and they will go, because that's the nature of this place. And so we have to be situated on the level of Atma, our own soul, and that's the same nature. It's beyond Prakriti, because all of this is the field. This is the field of our experience. It's the field that we witness. We witness our emotions. We witness our thoughts. We witness our feelings. Of course, when we identify, then there's a feeling content there also. But this is all in the field of our awareness. But this is actually, just like, I'll quickly wrap this up. There was one king, his name was Janak Maharaj. And one day he had a dream. And in that dream, I spoiled it a little bit there, but in his dream he saw that an invading army came in and they conquered his whole kingdom. They took his palace, they took his wives, and they threw him out on the edge of the kingdom. And then this was a cause of great distress for him. And then he woke up and he realized, oh, it was just a dream. But then he was like, was that the dream, or am I dreaming? Which one? And he was in such confusion he couldn't tell. Was the dreaming state dream, or was the waking state dream? And he was in such confusion about this, and he couldn't function actually as a king. He was just asking the question: was that real, or or is the other thing real? Who am I? Who am I? Which one's real? And then so the word spread around the kingdom that the king had gone a little bit crazy. And then one sage came to that palace, Ashravakta. And so Ashravakta, he said to that king, because the king said, was the dream real or was this real? Which one? Which one's the dream? And then Ashtavakra, he said, both of them are a dream. And what is real is that is witnessing both of them. So we are witnessing these three states, waking, sleeping, and dreaming. What's real is the witness to them, because the witness is unchanging. The rest is just the fluctuations of material nature. So we have to come out of the dream and be established in what's real, and then from there we can build from there. So thank you for patiently listening.
When I came to this class, I was thinking about the same story. I'm like, maybe one day you will talk about this story. And it's just surprising, like in the end of the class, you're actually talking about the same story I was thinking in the beginning. This is just magic. It's just energy is flowing like that. Yeah, when I sat here, I'm like, yeah, I just think about it. Like I thought about it, and I'm like, maybe he will talk about it one day. And he did, just now.
Good, I said something like this.
Like what?
That we are all connected, so when you think about something,
Yeah,
you
this
don't
is
swear.
like energy flows, you know?
In the second verse of Chaita Sloki Gita, the 4 seed verses of the Bhagavatam, Machara Makara Prana Bodhyanta Parasparam Kata Yantascha Mam Nityam Tasyanticha Ramanticha. My devotees, they delight in conversing and talking about me. And when they come together, I inspire them in the heart. And this flow of kata goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So Krishna has given us some mercy. Hare Krishna. Now we have prasadam, so if we can arrange ourselves to sit so we can serve you all out. And unless anyone has any more questions.
Ekagra and Neroda, this is like the dire en français. Ce que j'ai compris, c'est que le sage, dans sa tête, il a une conception d'objet, et après, il n'a plus besoin de conception.
The wise has a conception of the object, but
it's like the true conception.
Okay, so the wise has the conception of the object, and then
like in Ekagra, he sees object. He see inside him, like in details. And Niroda is like he don't need anymore.
In Nirodha, the alambana, the support of the mind or the object,
is no longer referent to Prakriti. In Nirodha, one can do Atmavichar, deliberation on the self. So no longer is the yogi concerned with going outward to examine in detail anything gross or subtle of material nature. It's a complete restraint, because all of those are also fluctuations in the citta, very sattvic fluctuations, because the citta is manifesting and taking that form for the yogi to examine. But in the Nirodha state, all of that is completely arrested. So this Nirodha state, it equates to ruchi in bhakti. But we'll talk more about that next time.
Can I ask you a question? Maybe it's too deep, but
Never too deep.
When one comes into Krishna consciousness, like without a guru, for example, that can actually give you a little bit of mercy so you can understand something, how can you trust or chant the name of Krishna if you haven't experienced Krishna? Or you don't know anything about Krishna, being God in a blue form, beautiful thing.
So you're asking, how can I have faith in chanting the names of God when I haven't come in, or I haven't come in contact with someone who's realized God?
Yeah. Because for me, the process is not intellectual, but for someone that doesn't have a guru, he needs to understand that.
Well, my suggestion would be that
they have heard that there's some benefit in chanting the names of God, right? So that they have heard some benefit in chanting the names of God. So then they inspires their practice, but no realization will be there at that point. But also we have to see the sukriti and the adhikar from previous lives. Because even if someone's coming in this life and they're chanting the name of God, and they maybe have some doubts, but they have some inspiration, this is not coming by chance. So if you look deeply into the core of that person, then you'll be able to see, just like if you do some yama on the aggregate of your samskaras, you'll see all your past lives. So someone has enough sukriti that they're coming in this life to chant the names of God. That's a development in their spiritual practice, and then realization can come after that. But in the beginning, we're doing that because we've heard from Guru, we've heard from scripture, we've heard from sadhu that is good for us on some level, or there's some intuition. But in the modern age of technology, we will have some understanding, there's some benefit to it. So that will inspire us in the beginning. And then from there, if we're lucky, realization.
For it not to be blind faith or something.
Well, see, this is the thing. Everyone's working up blind faith in the beginning. Most people won't come, oh, I've experienced Krishna, now maybe I should do some japa. This is a very, very rare case. So everyone's going on blind faith. But if they follow the sequential sequence, they'll come to realization there's nothing blind about this process. Try to understand how potentially he is the master psychologist of the whole universe, and how he has explained the stages of meditation. If you're a Christian, if you're a Muslim, if you're whatever, just study the stages of development of meditation as per Patanjali, and you'll understand your own tradition, your own technique so much more. It will give you such context and such a roadmap. And because the sages have experienced all these things, out of their causeless compassion, they're giving us a roadmap to also have these experiences. And that's also why Patanjali is giving in the Bhutipada, third chapter, when you go deeper into meditation, and particularly if you're meditating on certain objects, cities will come. And so he also recommends don't get distracted. They're not the goal, but they will absolutely come. Depends on Krishna's mercy, but in terms of mechanical progression, they will come. So he's given that to give a guide map of not get distracted and think that that is the goal. Those are steps along the way, so we have to keep progressing. So that's why he's dedicated a whole chapter to it, is because so many people, if they start meditating or whatever, they think, oh, bask in attained enlightenment. But this is not the goal, and because this is just a tanmatra. It's not even on the level of Shukshma Shariya. This will definitely not be on Prakriti. So that's why I said earlier, on each level, there's a whole spectrum of things that's manifest on each level. Subtle beings, formless beings, different worlds. So as you go through all of them, they'll all manifest. It depends on your wiring, but they can definitely manifest in your consciousness. And so, in New Zealand, I know this lady, little closed group, and she channels like fifth dimensional beings. And so when she started channeling, she's got a little group that comes every week, and they were talking to these fifth dimensional beings, and they had just such conversations like, what do you do on your planet? What do you eat for food? Do you have sex? How do you breed? There wasn't even any time for practical instructions, like how can you guide us? There was just so much interest on those other locus. And then after some time, they kind of realized this is actually not really helping us advance on our own journey. This is just kind of distraction. So as you go up into these states of Samadhi, then you're contacting some beings and, oh, I've attained such realization along so advanced. But those beings, they're still in Prakriti, and they have an agenda. So then some are good, some are not so good. But we want to go beyond the material. Otherwise, so many side paths.
Yeah.